Hello. Anybody there? I think I hate you, technology. And can you? Hello. Viewers are able to ask questions, otherwise this doesn't work so well. Shut it up. Henry. Yes, please. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Ah, dear. This is meant to be interactive. Kind of the deal. Come on, people. Come on. What? Well, this kind of sucks. It shouldn't be a private thing anyway. This is ridiculous. I hate technology. What are you doing? We got two people, I think. Are you able to, like, on the window that you're viewing, there should be a group chat on the right hand side of the screen. Are you able to enter things into that? Yeah. Cool. I think we have some people there, but for some reason you don't seem to be able to interact with me, which I thought is the whole point of Google Hangouts. Because I thought when you join the conversation, you're actually meant to be able to interact in the conversation. All right. Showing that I have viewers, but it's not showing the viewers. Let me see if I can click on a little thing here. I'm going to open Q&A and see what that does. Okay, I've opened Q&A and it says submit questions and they'll appear below. so sure about that. Okay, cool. I found it. Alana, I'll tell you here. You can switch aside to learn. Go ahead and start the presentation. Alrighty. So that seems to be that you have to open up an entire Q&A section as opposed to just chatting normally, which seems slightly ridiculous, but it's all good. If anyone is there, then I'll get going through it. But if you have questions, then please add them, I think, to the Q&A section as opposed to the chat section. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, this is stuck slightly because I was hoping that people could ask questions as we go through. But anyway, I don't know if these are in chronological order. Okay, speak louder if I can. All right, cool. So anyway, I'm just going to presume that people are there. I have no idea if you are, but let me switch into the screen that I can show you and take you through a couple of things here for teaspoons of change. Jump over to this screen. Okay, awesome. So hopefully there are people looking at this. I have no idea if you are or not, but I'm going to press on anyway. So these are the global goals for sustainable development. They are 17 goals trying to focus on specific little areas, but overall they're trying to accomplish 3 major things. And those 3 things are to end extreme poverty, which there's a certain definition for extreme poverty according to the World Bank, to reduce inequality, and to protect the planet. So these goals are going to take us from 2015 to 2030. And they're a framework. They're not just anything that we can push the button on and make it all our best intentions come true. It's about all of us kind of doing something a little bit here and there to ensure that these goals can be achieved, and particularly to see those 3 outcomes by 2030 of ending extreme poverty, reducing inequality, and protecting the planet, or ensuring environmental sustainability. So there are a couple of really cool links out there. I can send this through to people afterwards. There's some good videos that explain a little bit more about these global goals, what they mean to us, and how we can be an active and effective part of their success. So this is the big picture. So this is fantastic that no matter who you are and where you live, we share the same set of goals to try and reduce inequality and end extreme poverty and looking after our environment. So I think we're actually really lucky to have these. They're not perfect. They're still, slightly neo-colonial classic ways of looking at the poor people. But I think it's important that we recognise that they are here, and that we try and utilise these goals to set a much more effective and meaningful way of getting people out of extreme poverty, to interact with each other, to reduce inequality within our own countries, and to look after the planet, not just on an individual basis, but as a global community. So to help us do that, I've also created a thing called Teaspoons of Change. And this is just my own sort of personal concept, and it's personal choices, decisions, and actions that have a positive impact on people and the planet. Or if you speak Japanese. Anyway, the idea of teaspoons of change is that any little personal choice, decision, or action that we make can have a positive impact. So by not buying bottled water, by reusing our plastic bags, not eating at big corporate fast food places, looking after our nature around us, reducing the amount of consumption we have, all these sorts of things. They're all teaspoons of change. And if we're going to go and try and achieve the big global goals by 2030, then we have to break it down into what it means to us. And this is where teaspoons of change hopefully gives us that opportunity. So the big question that I ask people is, what is a global citizen? And it's an easy, well, it's not an easy question. It looks like an easy question, but it's not necessarily an easy answer, because it really depends on what it means to you. What does a global citizen think? How does a global citizen feel? What are the things that a global citizen says? And most importantly, what does a global citizen do to be active and effective in the world of ending extreme poverty and looking after the planet? So it's really important that we ask ourselves this question and work out what our answer is to what our answer means to us and what it means to our life and the things that we do. And then these global goals, think about it not just on your personal perspective, but what do they mean to you? What do they mean to your family? What do they mean to your community? And what does it mean to the world? So this is where we start to think of, so for you, it's those sorts of things I was talking about, maybe using more solar devices to recharge your phone, or engaging with your members of parliament. So they're things on an individual level. Then as a family, we can choose to eat more sustainably, more locally produced goods, eat less meat, eat seasonal sorts of things. As a family, you might be able to choose where your electricity comes from. You can certainly look at where you, the kind of things that you do as a family, where you spend your money. Are you buying lots of things and stuff, or are you spending money on services and experiences? So those sorts of things, looking at our family. And then our community, that's the bigger stuff. So trying to make sure that our community has effective waste management, making sure our community is investing into cycling infrastructure so that we can use more of us can be on more bikes more often. And then as the world, that's where we look at these bigger topics and issues like the TTP, trade agreements, and these sorts of things, where we have lots of wonderful people who are out there trying to make the world a better place from a global perspective. So hopefully that all makes sense. So start thinking about any questions you might have about being an effective and active global citizen for me. Start cooking them up, and feel free to shoot them to me if I'm able to access them all. Let me just take a pause here to see if anyone is actually following along, can either hear me, see me, or if any of this is actually getting anywhere. Just checking. I thought this is meant to be interactive, but it seems okay. Alana, I can see your little questions coming up here. So you have about 6 people at Enspiral Space. Am I all good to continue on? Can you hear me a bit easier now? Okay, cool. I'm not getting any feedback from anyone, but I slightly have a feeling that we're going along okay. Cool. All right. So I'll just have to continue on a bit blindly, hoping that you're still following along. So let me switch back to the presentation for you folks and kick it off from where we were. So I'm going to try and make it really brief so that people can actually ask questions if possible. Quick introduction, my name's Darcy Lunn, and I do lots of different things for different organisations all over the place. But I come from a large family in Adelaide in South Australia. I'm a wannabe Kiwi. I have a tiny house in Paikakaripi, not far from Wellington. But I grew up in Australia and didn't really care about the world like most Australians. And I was only interested in football and cricket and those sorts of things. But then I was very fortunate when I was 18 years old to to go and work in a bakery in Japan. Now, I never grew up thinking that I would be a baker, a Japanese baker, but the opportunity came up and I took it. And it really showed to me that the world is so wide and vast that I can do the stuff that even I didn't dream of doing when I was younger. And it really broadened my universe. And from then I sort of decided to not look at what I wanted to be, but actually focus on things that I wanted to do. And I've kind of followed that path for the last 15 years in over 80 countries. But one of the first countries I went to traveling overseas was in Kyrgyzstan, a really mountainous country, to go and climb some mountains, because that's what I wanted to do. If I listened to what I wanted to be, then climbing mountains in Kyrgyzstan isn't a great progression to become a primary school Japanese teacher, which is what I wanted to be. But from there, I learned from so many wonderful people. These are some of the teachers in Kyrgyzstan at a university where I was teaching. And I learned an incredible amount from these women, because their salary as a university teacher was $40 for 1 month. That meant they were incredibly resilient, very resourceful, and they interacted with their community. They were dependent on their community, and it was important that they contributed to their community. So I really learned an incredible amount from these amazing women. In Kyrgyzstan, I ran out of money and went volunteering in various other places, and ended up in South Korea, where my salary as an English teacher was $40 for 1 hour. And that's when, inequality really slapped me in the face, because I knew that I wasn't smarter. I didn't work longer. I didn't work harder than my friends Jildis and Abisa and my other friends in Kyrgyzstan. It basically came down that I was born where I was born and had access and opportunity to health, education, income, all these sorts of things. And my friends were born where they were born, and that was the only difference in life. And so when the world sort of tilted itself upside down, after that realization, then I just sort of kind of realized that I would work towards equality, justice, and have access and opportunity for everyone, no matter where they were born. And so, like I said, instead of focusing on what I wanted to be in the future, I was also always focusing on what did I want to do in the future. And that's led my path for the last 15 years in more than 80 countries around the world. But the 3 hardest questions I get asked is, what's your job? Where do you live? And how do you get paid? And I don't have any easy answers, because I do different things in different places at different times with different people. And I do it with lots of different people. So these are just some of the organizations that I try to collaborate and coordinate with, and volunteer for, or work for, or work in unison as much as possible. And then sometimes there's a gap in the world, which I feel like that there should be something, so I added in myself. And I've created a few different things like Polio Points, which is a schools program, Happy Simply, a sustainable lifestyle model and education project, and Teaspoons of Change, that idea of one small action does eventually add up to make big change. But essentially, for me to be an active and effective global citizen is to know good people with good ideas doing good things. And I hope that we have some people from enspiral on this call, because I share the work of enspiral with many people. There are many aspiring social entrepreneurs out there in the world, not exactly sure what to do. So I always flick them over towards enspiral so they can get some good ideas from good people doing good things. The other thing I try to do as a global citizen is to be a bridge, not just the Sydney Harbour Bridge, but any kind of bridge. And basically on one side of the bridge, we have those people who are doing good things, and on the other side of the bridge, we have those people who want to do good things. And sometimes I feel that one of the biggest roles that we can play is just connecting people to good ideas and those other people doing good things. So I make sure that I know really good people doing fantastic work on all of those 17 global goals, whether it's gender equality, water and sanitation, life below water, all these sorts of different global goals. If I know great people that are working hard on those, and I meet people who want to do something about it, then I bridge them across and get them involved. And so I suppose I do know what I want to be these days, and it's not a professional cricketer as it was when I was 7 years old. It's that I want to be the best global citizen that I can possibly be. And that's what gets me up every morning excited to face another day. I love Mondays. The idea of not liking a Monday, I don't get it. So I feel very fortunate that I get to do the work and the things that I love doing. And sometimes that means just riding a bike. This is around New Zealand in 2009. I did a bit of a bike ride around the South Island and parts of the North Island. Sometimes it's giving bigger presentations. This is with 700 Year 9 students in Singapore at a girls' school. And just recently, well, this time last year, I was in South Sudan working with UNICEF and facing some of the biggest challenges that I've ever seen anywhere in the world. South Sudan is a poorly governed country with many, many problems. But what I found is that no matter how big the challenges were, instead of people running away from those challenges, there were always people running towards them to find solutions. And I was really bolstered by that there are so many people that care in the world and who do want to help humanity and mankind to create a better world for everyone. And my role in South Sudan was working with education and then also social mobilization is what we call it. How we get people to know about vaccines, immunizations, sanitation, nutrition, all these sorts of things. And in particular, I work in polio eradication, which is just 2 drops of vaccine that stop a child from contracting polio. So for me, my personal definition of a global citizen is knowing my choices, decisions and actions, they do have an impact on people on the planet, and feeling a sense of responsibility, not a sense of burden, but a sense of responsibility that I can take good actions that have a positive impact on the world. And when I feel that, then it just encourages me and puts a smile on my face to be able to have the opportunity to make as many of those good choices as I can on a daily basis. And that can be reducing the amount of paper that I use, hence, number of trees that we need, reducing the amount of water that I use to make sure that there's enough fresh, clean water to go around. And then also knowing that the environment is innately connected to people. I spent a year volunteering in Ethiopia, and the people here were the first ones to suffer from the effects of climate. So it's the world's most vulnerable communities that are hit by climate change and the effects of the environment fastest and hardest. So if we're doing good things for the environment, then it means we're doing good things for people. Generally, if we're doing good things for people, then we're doing good things for the environment as well. So congratulations, we are all global citizens. Well done. But the big question is this one: how can you be a good one? How can we be an active and effective global citizen? This isn't going to work, so I'm just going to skip that one. And the next question is, who do you think is a good one? Who do you think is a fantastic global citizen out there as a wonderful role model? If you're at the Enspiral Lab, then maybe have a chat to the people next to you and share your thoughts on who you think is a wonderful global citizen. And if you're by yourself, then think about it. And sorry, you can't respond. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, so for me, I think we're extremely fortunate to have someone like Malala, and the fact that she's well known is wonderful. Generally people who are famous are either rich or sports stars or musicians or whatever it is. And Malala is just a girl who's passionate about girls' education. And I think it's a wonderful role model, and we're so lucky to have someone like Malala to become popular in the world. And the other thing is that I know thousands of other people like Malala. Malala's notoriety of having been shot in the head by the Taliban has given her the platform, and she's utilising it incredibly effectively. But I also know thousands of other people just like Malala who are passionate about a better world for others. Another favourite of mine is this dude, Michael Franti, from Spearhead, the musician. He is a musician. But in some of his lyrics, they're just really poignant, and this one is my favourite. And he says, "Are you a part of the pollution or are you a part of the solution?" And I love that set of lenses to look at the world. So I suppose the next question is, how does a global citizen create positive change? So what are the things that we can do? And this is where I think Teaspoons of Change offers people a sense of empowerment, that their actions do matter, can and do matter, and what are some of those actions that people can take. So to do this, when I first started Teaspoons of Change, I went for a walk in Japan, so just gearing up, and I walked for 1,000 kilometers, and then I got really bad shin splints. So I jumped on a bicycle and then rode for another 1,500 kilometers, and had a lot of time to think, is generally what that tells you. And so what I thought about is, what are the good choices, what are the good decisions, and what are the good actions that have a positive impact? And the other thing that I use a lot is to reflect on my own life. What's my balance of help and harm? How much help am I putting into the world, just on a personal basis, not the stuff that I do for others, but the things that I choose to eat? the way that I choose to live, and then what are the personal harms that I put into the world. And so I offer people to actually think about that. So on my journey in Japan of walking and riding a bike, I actually really thought about what are the list of helps that I do and what are the list of harms that I do. So you might want to find time to do that at some stage as well. And if this was a more interactive presentation, I'd be wanting to hear back from you what your helps and your harms are. But let me share with you just a few of mine. So some of the helps that I do is I walk and ride a bike a lot. I refuse plastic bags, so I always carry a pocket full of reusable bags. I never buy bottled water. It's been more than 2 years that I've bought a bottle of water, and that's in Africa, Asia. I'm currently in Nepal at the moment, in Kathmandu, where you can't drink the tap water, but I carry a filter or boil it or use those much bigger jugs of water that can be refilled. This is a really important one, is that I engage with representatives. So if I'm not speaking to my representatives or my leaders and telling them that I care about the environment, telling them I care about foreign aid, and telling them I care about a better future for all, not just for the constituency, then that's a really important thing for me personally, is to make sure that that my leaders are hearing from someone like me. And for me, I don't eat meat at all if I can avoid it, but sometimes I can't in the countries and situations I'm in. It's easier to avoid bottled water than it is meat in some places. Yeah, that's all good. That makes me kind of help heavy, but my harms are things like I do fly on planes. Unfortunately, I didn't get to Nepal via bicycle or walking as much as I would have loved to. So I have to be very conscious of my flights, and I never do return flights. So I sort of skip around the world and make sure that I'm not just going to one place and then shooting back, and then another place and then shooting back, but actually trying to string all of my flights together. So I rarely take flights that are over 6 or 7 hours at any one time. I'm a bit notorious for buying cheap stuff, which means it breaks and you have to replace it. Not so good at shutting down my laptop properly, rather than just kind of closing the lid and thinking that's turned off when it's still using some power. I do like biscuits, so I have to watch out for all those sorts of things that have palm oil in it, and try and reduce my palm oil consumption because of the habitat that it is taking away from our orangutans and also from traditional communities in Borneo and other places. And I do like soda water. I like water with bubbles in it. And so I choose very special moments to drink my soda water. And actually I use this for schools presentations, so that could be interpreted as beer as well with an adult audience. So, it's not about never having these things. It's about being conscious of them and trying to reduce the harm and maximize the help. And what I try and do is to flip that balance from being harm heavy to being help heavy and harm light. So what are the things that I can do to maximize my help? And what are the things that I can do to minimize my harm? And so one of the things to really try and offset my flying emissions and other things was to come up with this concept of what is the most sustainable lifestyle that I can think of and that I've learned from around the world, from people, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa and those places where they do live a very subsistent and self-sufficient life, not by choice, but to adapt that to a Western lifestyle and see what I could take out of it. And so I came up with Happy Simply, which is a sustainable lifestyle model and education project. And it features things like a 10 square metre batch, compost toilets, walking, volunteering, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not very good at making things beautiful. This poster was, I'm a boring dot points sort of guy. And so I sent off to my friend, she makes lovely posters. And then I sent these lovely posters off to lots of people like Shaq down in Dunedin and others. And they knew designers, so I found a designer and they can do cool stuff like this, which I can't. And then with these designs, we found builders and we built a 10 square metre self-sufficient tiny house. And you can see it's built on an old boat trailer. Maybe you can see the front end sticking into the grass somewhere down there. But yeah, so it's fully self-sufficient, solar panels on the top, water capture, rainwater capture with a blue tank, compost toilet, riding my bike, and it sits in Paikakariki. Here's the inside. It was on the front page of the Kapiti Observer when we were building it as a community, which was lovely. And I mean, my skills aren't in building, my skills are in getting stuff for free and convincing people to build stuff for me. And then had a great time in New Zealand, so I built another one in 2014 in Australia, and it came with a free rainbow in Australia, which was lovely. Yeah, a bunch bigger water tank on this one. We learnt a few tricks from New Zealand. Yeah, a veranda goes a long way, and this one also is built on a trailer to try and avoid council regulations. But the wonderful thing was the sense of community that it provides and builds, which was just fantastic. And so yeah, it's, you know, we have to celebrate the things that we can do, those good choices. So for me, riding a bike is one. You don't have to be this excited about riding a bike, but I had just finished 4,000 kilometres around New Zealand, so I was pretty happy, and so was my aunt to be finished that bike ride. And so yeah, think about doing the things that we can do, celebrate them, and do them more often is what I tell lots of students when I present. Then come up with your own ideas. This was in Japan. This is Mai Hashi. This is my chopsticks character. And it's saying, "Wasadane dane, don't forget your chopsticks." So when you go to restaurants in Japan, they use waribashi, the one-time use chopsticks. You use them once and then chuck them away. Whereas Mai Hashi is encouraging people to take their own chopsticks so they don't use the throwaway ones. In Thailand, the students came up with, you know, making sure that we support our local producers, our local markets, and these sorts of things. Less packaging, more seasonal, closer to home, and supporting local people rather than you know, big business where the profits don't necessarily go back into the community. So there you go, folks. What are some of your teaspoons of change? What are the little things that we have a choice to do each day? We can't do everything all the time, but I think we can mostly do something most of the time. And the big question might be this one, you know, does any of this really make a difference? Let me share with you just a couple of stats. So the percentage of people living in extreme poverty in 1981 was 52%, was around 52%. More than half the world lived in extreme poverty in 1981, according to statistics back then. So my question is, in 2015, what percentage of people do you think still live in extreme poverty? Maybe have a guess to the person next to you, if I'm still speaking to people and not to myself, of which I have no idea if I am or not. Okay, a quick guess there, your percentage. Okay, have we gone up? Have we gone down? Is it about the same? Well, we have the projected figures from the World Bank for 2015, and it's showing us that we're going down significantly. 9.6%, or 702 million people in the world. The first time that we've dropped below 1 billion people living in extreme poverty. Statistics don't give the full picture. Obviously, sub-Saharan Africa, the bottom 2/3 of Africa, has not seen the same drop in extreme poverty as, say, China. So China's lifted 500 million people out of extreme poverty in the last 15 years. So that has skewed these statistics significantly. But we are seeing across the board a drop in extreme poverty, no matter where you live. It's just not been as fast for some countries or as sustainable in other countries as well. But what I do believe is that by 2030, we can end extreme poverty. I'm absolutely convinced that it is possible, but it requires all of us to do something. So you can check out more information on looking at extreme poverty and how we're doing great things. Hans Rosling is definitely the dude to check out and listen to. Check out the Magic Washing Machine. That's one of my favorites. And also check out Minder, where he gets some graphs. Like, he's a Swedish professor, he talks about graphs. He probably wears socks with sandals, but I think Kiwis wear socks and sandals, so you won't be so offended. But yeah, he shows some really amazing statistics, you know, showing access to mobile phones and infant mortality and how those two compare. And it does it country by country and throws all of these amazing data together. And I'm sure Enspiral folks, we have some data nerds out there who would love Gapminder. Then a quick story of polio eradication, a disease that maybe many of you haven't heard of before. So in 1988, there were still 350,000 cases of polio. In 1988, there were 125 countries still endemic with polio, had never stopped polio. By 2015, we're down to just 2 countries. Okay, Afghanistan and Afghanistan and Pakistan. In 2012, we had the lowest number of cases ever, 223. But for 2015, the cases there have just been 72. So 2015 is actually the lowest number of cases ever in the history. And then even better than that is Africa. And Africa is not one country, it's 54 countries. Has gone more than 1 year without a case of polio for the first time ever. And that's something that we don't usually hear about so often, are the good news stories of polio eradication and poverty eradication. So this is an amazing effort, and global polio cases are at an all-time low. And I help run this thing called Polio Points. I started in Brunei with some teachers, and it's a meaningful and impacting award and reward system that could be used at schools. It's usually at schools, but it could be universities, could be businesses. And the concept is that people do good things, being an active and effective global citizen. They earn their points. Teachers reward them those points, polio points. They get rewarded with a donation. They get matched by a donation. And then those donations go to polio eradication on the ground in a place like Pakistan. So people do good deeds locally, they're awarded polio points, they get matched with a donation, and then a vulnerable child receives 2 polio drops and is immunised. And it's all used, it's all done also with an online system called Vivo. So if you go to makingthepoint.org, you'll find all that really cool stuff. So there's a wonderful online system run by Vivo, and they can capture all the points that are given, show your points against others, etc. And so, when people say 1 drop in the ocean doesn't make a difference, well, 1 drop of polio vaccine certainly does. And it's because of 2 drops, actually you usually give 2 drops, 2 drops, 2 drops, 2 drops, billions of times over is how we've almost eradicated this disease. So I believe anything is possible. So here's the thing, is we know what it takes, and we know that it's affordable. The world spends twice as much on bottled water than it would cost for people to have access to clean water everywhere in the world. This is a per year figure, these 2 figures. So we know that we have enough money, we just got to spend it in the right way. And we know that we can do this together. It's going to take all kinds of people to work together, people living in extreme poverty, rich people, famous people, people who work in the sector, but most importantly, people like you and I to do what we can. And there's lots of things that we can do. It's not just about giving money. The global goals are a wonderful pathway for us to follow. Check them out. There's 169 targets behind all of these goals. They get really specific, they're measurable, so we can keep ourselves and our countries accountable. And there's, just know that any teaspoon of change that you do, like reusing your plastic bags, is something like whereas cities and communities, number 11, sustainable cities and communities. So making sure that if your city hasn't banned plastic bags like it has in South Australia, that's where I'm from, then you're taking the initiative yourself and not using plastic bags. Responsible consumption and production, keeping our businesses accountable, making sure that they're making good choices as well. So there's lots of things that we can do on a personal level that relate to these global goals. And then choose the one that matters the most to you. What is the focus of your passions and interests and causes? So for Malala, it's school. For other people like myself, it's gender equality. And also a responsible consumption and production. Like I think consumerism is a huge problem. So I put that front and center in a lot of places. So think about how the thing that you love most in the world with your cause and your passion and how that relates to all of those global goals, because I know it will in some way, shape or form. Join campaigns. This is a campaign for Australian Aid, which I was a part of, because the Aussies have cut $11 billion out of their Australian aid budgets, and we're down to the lowest levels ever of being generous to anyone else in the world, which is appalling. So I join lots of campaigns to try and make a difference and get things heard. And we, Australia, when I say we, although I'm a wannabe Kiwi, we're even behind New Zealand these days. So just 22 cents out of $100 from Australia goes in Australian aid. I think New Zealand's 0.23, so 23 of your cents in $100 goes to foreign aid. So both of us could be doing better, that's for sure. So check out campaigns that exist, know about all these good people with good ideas doing good things, celebrate them and get other people to join up with them. There's lots of good resources out there. Global Citizen always has lots of information on topics and issues that you might care about, global topics and issues. Sustainable Tables, my favorite for looking at sustainable foods. Give a Fork is a wonderful campaign that they run as well. So check out Sustainable Table. You might be familiar with Peter Singer and some of the things that he does. And one of his new things is effective altruism, so doing good better. There's a weird kind of artificial intelligence arm to it, but I tend to ignore that and look at the way that they look at trying to be more effective in the work that we do for others. Then giving what we can. I love this. This is a wonderful initiative. So ensuring that people give a minimum of 10% of their income to ending extreme poverty. And there's an online calculator. There's all these sorts of things where you can get yourself in shape for giving to other people. Check out your salary, compare it to the world. It's a bit scary. I kind of work on a voluntary random basis and don't earn a huge amount of money. I'm more or less just self-sufficient, but even I rank very highly in the world with the amount of money that I do receive to keep myself sufficient. So check that out. Results are my favourite. There isn't results in Aotearoa just yet, but they're a wonderful political campaigning organisation. And if I ever get to go and spend time back in New Zealand, I hope to start up a results group when I'm there. Then just know about lots of local people as well. So this is 7 women based in Nepal that I've been interacting with since I've been here in Nepal. And yeah, just know that there are fantastic organisations out there doing meaningful work, and they do a great job of empowering women, especially girls, young women with disabilities, giving them a chance to interact with their community, have a sense of empowerment, and also become decision makers in their own lives and also the lives of their community. So I love the work that they do. It's of interesting handcrafts and bits and pieces to create social enterprises, basically. Jump Foundation's another awesome one. They work on youth empowerment. I do a lot of stuff with them. So if you're interested, very similar to Orienteering Aotearoa, but on a slightly different platform. So instead of having one group of people intimately for a long time, they tend to just skip around schools and businesses and run programs. So let me know if you want to know more about them. I'm very well connected to those folks. Awesome stuff that they do. IYPF, International Young Professional Foundation, always good to check out. They're basically just professionals who care about the world. So check them out. And when we do share all of our information with people to end extreme poverty, we try and have this mix of information and inspiration. So give people the facts and figures, but tell them why you care and why it should matter to them. And make sure that you make a difference. You know, it's great to take all of these actions ourselves, but it's really important that we share them with others as well. And we can do that with a strong message and different kinds of methods. Like we all have different ways that we want to interact with people and share good messages. For me, it's often standing in front of people and giving presentations. And for others, it's something completely different. This is a group of school kids that came up with this idea. They said, you can help end extreme poverty by eating chocolate, which I thought was a really cool slogan. That was their message. And they said, of course, that is if it has the fair trade symbol, which means, you know, these sorts of things. If we buy fair trade chocolate, then it's a fair price, no children involved in the supply chain, blah, blah, blah. And so what they would do is they would eat fair trade chocolate and they would keep the wrappers, and then they would get about 10 of those wrappers together. They'd write a letter to companies who don't use fair trade, like Nestle, and say, look, we only eat chocolate that is fair trade. We hope you can start using fair trade chocolate in your products. And they would send that off with every 10 wrappers of fair trade chocolate that they had. Another method of students engaging was this one, the purple pinky. A little girl painted her pinky purple, and then she walked around town and people were like, hey, why have you got a purple pinky? And then she explained the story of polio eradication and told them how close we are to ending polio. And then the fingerprint of primary students. There were a school of 500 students. They'd fingerprint their purple pinky, and then they'd write their names on it, and they wrote a letter to Stephen Harper explaining why they thought ending polio was such a good idea. And the Canadian government gave $240 million on the back of that campaign. Not just because of one fingerprint, but because of everyone doing something. There's other campaigns I helped start. Live Below the Line back in the day in Australia, and I'm not sure if it's running in New Zealand this year. Don't know. Have to check it out with the GPP folks, for the Global Poverty Project people there. And to kick things off, I sort of helped out in America by doing a 1,000-mile bicycle ride whilst living on $1.50 to create some awareness. So we can have fun in the way that we campaign. We can make it enjoyable, make it interesting. And I love this little formula of gift plus passion equals change. So think about the things that you enjoy doing. For me, it's like riding a bike. Add it to your passion or the cause that you care about. So for me, it was ending extreme poverty. And when we put those two things together, then that's how we can start to create some change and making it fun and interesting. So again, I'll leave you with your teaspoons of change. I'm sorry this hasn't been interactive in the way that I had hoped, but hopefully you've got a few things there and you might have some questions. Like I said, we can't do everything all the time, but we can mostly do something most of the time. I'm not sure if that makes sense. Anyway, and my final formula is this one, is that any actions, even just small actions, multiplied by lots of people can and will create big change. And that's why a teaspoon of change makes a difference. So if we do these sort of things, we can see a poverty-free world for everyone, everywhere, and forever. And that's the legacy that we hope we can leave. And for me, I just know that any teaspoon of change that I make does have an impact on people. This girl, I gave her 2 polio drops so that she could, not have to face a disease like polio. And any teaspoon of change like that, you don't have to be in Pakistan giving polio drops, but just knowing that any good actions that we take do have an impact in the world. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of what a global citizen means to me and what it might mean to you. And if you want to get in touch, then please feel free to do so. There's email, Twitter, I kind of hang around on a little bit. Facebook is a good way to engage, and there's a bit of a website there as well. So Q&A, let me see if anyone is actually on here at all. Let me go back here. Hi folks, do I have anyone here? Do I know how people can ask questions? I don't. I have no knowledge or means of seeing if anyone is here. I started with 2 viewers and it says I still have 2 viewers, so that's kind of a bonus, I think. Any messages here on the chat? No. There's a group chat function that you might want to jump on. If you see the icons on the left-hand side of your Google Hangout, the top one, which has the little speech bubbles, and you can maybe join me on that chat and see if you have any questions. Is anybody there? If you are watching from New Zealand, then I hope to be there in August. I hope. But I've won a scholarship to do a master's in Japan, and that will start from September. So I hope to get some Kiwi time in before then. But I'll see. I'll see how it goes. And if not, hopefully at the end of the year, December, January. Inshallah. They're switching over to Q&A function to see if anyone's there. What the hell is that now? I don't know. I kind of can't hear or see anything from anyone. So hopefully people are able to join in. I have no idea if I just spoke to myself for the last 50 minutes, but if I did, then I think this is recorded and I can put it up on YouTube. So we'll see what see what happens there. All right, folks. Well, yeah. If I can see or hear anything from you, then we'll see what happens. All right, let me close this off, and Alana, maybe just drop me an email. I think is kind of maybe the best way forward to see if anyone was here or not. And hopefully, if you are, then look, just drop me an email, at teaspoonsofchange@gmail.com. You can do that. That would be grand. I'm very happy to try and get around and answer your emails, although I'm visiting some community projects here in Nepal for the next few days. But yeah, thanks anyone if you happen to join in. I hope it worked. I have no idea, but but we'll see. Cool. Cheers. Over and out.